My name's Ludwig Roseclair. I go by ludwigrose.photo on Instagram. I wanted to do a quick tutorial over how I edit my photos. I've been shooting portrait photography for about coming up on 2 years now. I used to be a wedding and family portrait photographer. I don't do that anymore. I kind of just shoot for the joy, for the love, and for the passion. And I kind of wanted to share some of the techniques and editing tricks that I've learned over the years. And hopefully I could help somebody else, close the gap on the learning curve that took me maybe a year or two to learn. Maybe they'll learn it sooner. So just wanted to see how I can give back. So this is my screen. I'm editing on my 27-inch iMac. It's a pretty good computer. I just got it maybe a month or two ago. I had to upgrade because I got a new Sony A7R II, which has huge files, and my old computer just couldn't handle it anymore. So this is my computer. I'm just going to pop in to Lightroom and Photoshop, the main editing tools I use. So I usually start off in Lightroom, or I always start off in Lightroom. I'll pick a photo that I like. So this one I like here. I shot this with Aldana last weekend. And, I like the lighting. I like the pose. I like her look in this photo. It has a bit of mystery in it. And that's kind of something that I look for in my base photo. It's like, do I feel drawn in by the person's look? And that's something I find is really important for me in my work, is that I'm kind of drawn in by their look. I'm drawn in by their eyes. I'm drawn in by their expression. And I feel like this photo does that for me. So when I'm editing, I do really basic stuff in here. I don't really do too much in Lightroom, to be honest. I have a preset that I made for this set already, so I'll probably just pop in over here. So Aldana. Now this came in a bit dark, so this lighting was probably a bit different from when we were shooting out in the courtyard. So I'll just adjust this crop a little bit. Yeah, that looks better to me. I'm going to bump up this exposure just a bit. That looks good. I like a really warm photo, so I tend to always put my temp around 5400, and that always seems to work for me, and that looks really good. See, her skin tone really comes out at that temperature, and I find that temp really works, about 5400 exactly. And you're going to shoot at whatever temperature works for you. This is just a look that I like. So you have to go for a look that you like. I like my photos to look a little magenta, so I'll usually put it in between 7 and 10. Just something I just started doing this past few months. I'll bump up the contrast just a bit. I'll play around with the highlights a lot just to see kind of what it gives me. So that looks good to me. I'm paying particular attention to her face and like how the highlights affect her face. I honestly, at this point, I don't care too much about the background. I just kind of pick general composition, but I'm really more worried about the person and how they look, because I think that's what my photos are about. It's about the person. It's not always about the landscape so much. I'm really focusing on how they look. That's with the whites. The whites I usually just bring up just a tad. And the blacks, they're down just a tad. I'm looking at this. It looks a little bright to me. But you know what? I'm going to leave it like that. There's something I can do in Photoshop that will fix that later. But I want her face to look, her face and her skin overall to look a certain way. Just adjust and crop just a bit, and that looks good to me. So what I'll do here is I'll right click, I'll edit in Photoshop, and that's gonna pop over into Photoshop, and we can start doing our work there. All right, so from here I start off with my base photo. A lot of people will duplicate the layer. I don't do that. I just kind of do my basic retouching first before I start duplicating layers and stuff, because I'm never going to go back to this base image. It's just not going to happen. So kind of zoom this in. The first thing I'll do is I go to layer and I'll go to new adjustment layer and I'll do a black and white. The reason I do this is because it's easier to see skin blemishes in black and white than it is to see it in color. So I'll zoom in on the face here. I'll bring the reds down to about, like, I think usually like a -100 usually works. You'll see how it really darkens up the photos, and you'll see how it darkens up the skin, and it'll bring out the skin, the minor imperfections in the skin. Now I want to make it clear that Aldana is a beautiful woman, and this is no shots to her whatsoever or to any other model I've ever worked with. But it's my job to make sure the photo looks as good as possible. I think that's why they shoot with me. That's the look I try to go for, and this is how I go about it. So I edit with a Wacom tablet. I actually just got this. I used to just edit with just a mouse, and I got so far with that and I realized that I needed the tablet. So I got the tablet, and it works really well. So what I'll do from here is I'll go to the spot healing tool, which is over here on the left, and I'll do spot healing. So before it was on patch tool, we'll get to that in a second, but I start off with the spot healing tool, and I'll zoom in real close on the face. And like again, the black and white conversion and dropping the reds and the yellows really exaggerates skin imperfection. So a lot of this stuff might be stuff you wouldn't even see if you were standing right in front of her, but in a photo, the photos are unforgiving. So we have to make sure that we get to the same quality as that we would see someone in real life, and that's what we're kind of trying to get back to. All right, so what we'll do here is I'll start top to bottom. I'll start to the top of the forehead. I'll just look for the little minor imperfections, and I'll just kind of draw it in, and then I'll just go through here. Hopefully I'll learn how to fast forward this because this is the first time I'm actually recording. So I go in and I look for little imperfections, and I'll just use this spot healing brush, and I'll just brush them away. So little by little, I'm gonna pick away at little imperfections, and a lot of you won't want to do this. A lot of you will find this tedious, and you're like, why am I doing this? But I really feel like this just brings your work to the next level. Like when those photographers you see and you just sit and you stare at their photos and you're like, oh my God, it's so good. Everything's flawless. The skin just really glows, and you just feel like the photographer really brought the best out of that person and just made them look and feel really good. It's like it's these extra little details that they sit down with that really makes a difference. And if you really want your work on that next level, I think this is just very necessary. So like I said, I'm just going through here, just picking away at little things. I don't like to edit the skin too much. I like it when there's texture in the skin, so I just kind of look for major, I wouldn't even say they're major, but like the clearer of minor flaws, and I try to get those. But this is a process that I really get to enjoy now. I kind of like just sitting down here and just like, just little incremental steps. It's kind of crazy that, each one of these steps I'm about to show you, I've learned at like various points over the past 2 years. And it's like 100, it's like to be good at something, there's no one thing that's going to make your work good. There's like, I can't teach you one trick that's going to, change your photography overnight. A lot of people will ask, what's that one thing about your photography that really just made a difference, like made a huge impact? And there's never going to be one thing. It's actually, like mastery or greatness or, anything that you see that is really good. It's the accumulation of hundreds of pieces of knowledge, techniques, thousands of hours of practice, and it's just the accumulation of all those little things. And there's no one thing in your photography that is going to make you 1,000 times better than somebody else. If you feel like someone's work is like 100 times better, than your own or someone else's, or, someone who just picked up a point and shoot off the shelf yesterday, it's because they spent time learning 100 different things, 100 different little things that alone you may not have noticed, but all together, makes a beautiful result. And I think it just takes time to learn all these little things, and I think it's worth it. I think if you're passionate about your craft, you're gonna take the time to learn all these things, and you're gonna be happy with the results, and the people you shoot with are gonna be really happy with your results. Oh man, I have to sneeze. That sneeze when it's like right there, but it's not coming out? Yeah, I got that going on right now. It's something. Shoo, excuse me. All right, so her skin looks pretty good to me. Like I said, you can see a lot of the texture in her skin, which I like. I shoot pretty much only with a Zeiss 55 1.8, which is super sharp. It's unforgivingly sharp, as you can see, which is why we're going in and doing this minor retouching on the skin. But I like that because it leaves a lot of detail in the skin, and it gives it more of a realistic look to that finished product. Even after all the stuff, all the retouching and stuff we do, it still makes it look real, And I like that. I like a really sharp lens, and it's the only lens I own now, and I purposely sold everything else so that I can focus less on my gear and more on my technique. I'd rather be a master of one lens than to be mediocre at 20 different lenses. It's just my personal opinion, but I've heard this numerous times from different photographers who have way more experience than me. They just realized they had too many lenses, and they're never really good at any one of those lenses, so they cut down to like 2 or 3. Like even wedding photographers, they'll cut down to 2 or 3 primes, and only shoot with that, like a 50 and a 135 or a 35 and an 85. And they just mastered those 2 lenses, and I think there's something to that. The angles that work for that lens, what looks work for that lens, what poses are going to fit in that lens, the landscape or how much background you need to make a lens look good. The sweet spot of the lens. I feel like there is a sweet spot for every single lens. Like there's a certain distance that looks really good for lenses, and I find for this 55 that I shoot with, or 50, it's kind of like the waist up, the hip up. It just looks good. Like things just look right. It looks in proportion. Things look correct. I don't know what it is, but there's something that really works with that, and it's pretty good with headshots too. And I really like to get in close on the face. I really feel like the heart and soul of any portrait is in your subject's eyes, and that their eyes and their expression, and that's what I like to focus on. And this looks pretty good to me. So yeah, her skin looks really good. I'm going to zoom back out, and you see how good her skin looks. And I did not save the before, like I said, because I just don't care for it. I know I'm never going to go back to this. So that looks good. So from here, I retouch the skin. So I have actions saved for this. So if you go into you can go to Windows and Actions. But I got Windows and Actions here. It looks like Shift F9, or if you're on a Mac, but you can just click on this play button here and it'll bring it up. Now I have frequency separation saved as an action. You can download this action offline. There's several tutorials on how to set this up, but this is high frequency separation. This allows you to separate the texture in the skin from the color, and really helps you to even out the skin tone. So I'll just hit play, and I'll just name that Skin Retouch. This will be the group, and I kind of have everything set up, so I just kind of have to hit enter, and I'll hit enter, and that's pretty much it. So over on my right side of the screen here, you'll see the Skin Retouch group. The texture is separated into a different layer, the color is in another layer, and the way I edit, I do the skin retouch on another layer. You could just do it right on the color layer, but I like to see the before and after, and sometimes you just go too hard. You make the skin too glossy, it just looks bad, and it's kind of the effect of staring at a photo too long. And you know, you don't even realize how much you went in, but this allows me to be able to go back and erase something if I need to. So I do it on a separate layer. I'll zoom back in on the face, so I'll get in tighter again. Now the key to this for me in retouching the skin in high frequency separation is less is more. It's really easy to go crazy with the frequency separation. I try not to. I still kind of like that, not a fake look, but it's like almost too perfect. Like, but it still looks pretty real. But it's just a little too perfect. I just like that look. Everybody's gonna like a different look. Some people are gonna like it pretty close to the real thing. Some people are gonna like the really plasticky, waxy doll kind of look. Some people like that. I don't like that, but I like it leaning a little away from super realistic to, you know, a bit of a softer look, and that's the kind of look that I like. So I'll zoom in on the face. I'll go to the brush tool. I'll hold Option on Macs or Alt on, I believe on PCs. So I'll hold that down and I'll get a sample of the skin. So when I'm here, I'm looking for, I always start here, right under the cheek. Some people start with the nose. I just kind of like to start over here. So I like to start in the cheek. I'm looking for a light tone, but not too light, because I'm trying to make the whole cheek even. So this looks pretty good to me right here. It's not super light, it's not super dark. And I'll bring my flow rate down to about 3%. I find that's a speed that works for me. I found 2 is a little too slow. That's the speed that a lot of people recommend, but it's a bit too slow for me. So I already had sampled it, so I'm just gonna brush, and you'll start to see that the skin is going to lighten. And like I said, less is more, so I'm paying attention to how this is affecting the skin, and that looks pretty good. I tried to remove the darkness from around the eyes, and I actually did forget a step now that I'm remembering, but we'll go over it later. And that looks pretty good. So what you want, you're not going to be good at this right away. This is like an art. There's not necessarily a right way to do it, but the key is lots of samples. So you got to be aware of different areas. So the cheek is usually like a triangle, so that's why I have that like this sweeping motion of a triangle. So I'll do that. I'll get around the nose. So the nose, I tried to make it really even up until about here to here. The nose, I want a little color on the bridge, on the sides of the bridges, so it kind of creates more depth, but just a little bit. You see how like you barely notice it, but it's going to add up over time. All the little things you're going to do is going to add up. You don't want to make anything too dramatic. And you see that I'm taking lots of samples, just lots and lots of samples of the colors and applying it. Lots and lots of colors and applying it, just constantly taking samples and applying it. I want the skin to look similar to how it already looks. I'm just evening out small different areas. This area I take a bigger brush over the forehead. I want the forehead to be pretty uniform. I add dimension in a different layer with dodging and burning, so I just kind of want this to be even. And you see how her skin really looks good already. I don't I try not to stay in any one spot too long, because the longer I stay in a spot, you know, the more that I forget that I'm already done a lot, and you know, it just ends up with that waxy look like I was saying, and I don't want that. So like I said, keys, just don't stay in any area too long. Just don't stay in area too long. And there's kind of different sections to the face, and you got to pay attention to which section you're in, and try not to do too much. Another guideline I look for is like the differences in shadow and light, and I try not to cross over. So if something is dark, then it's gonna stay dark. If it's light, it's gonna stay light. I just try to even that particular area. So that this is starting to look really good. I like the look of this. I try to get the dark side of the cheek and just kind of just make it even. You know, it does kind of make it lighter. It's not really my intent, but I just want it to be an even shade. And that looks really good. I just kind of really like the look that she has. It's like that a mysterious look. Like you were kind of, I don't really like how, you know, that darkness kind of blood in there. So I'm just going to go back. Yeah, I just kind of like, I really like the look of the photo. I like the expression here. Donna is just a great model. She's super fun. Just a lot of fun to work with. You know, hopefully we'll get to shoot again soon. But yeah, this is looking pretty good. I don't think I touched up on this area here above the lips, so I'll just kind of get in there and just like low, just really low opacity, or not the opacity, I'm sorry, the flow rate, just keep it low. It won't be crazy. It won't end up with a super plastically look. You know, as long as you keep your flow rate low and you don't spend too much time in the same place is what I'm trying to say. The photo is going to look good. I don't think I actually sampled that. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, there we go. Like I said, take lots of samples. Any breaks in light, yeah, it's a new section. This is a new section. That's a new section. That's a new section. You see differences in colors, shading, you know, it's a different section. So you just resample that area. And this looks pretty good. So I'm just going to zoom out and just make sure it doesn't look crazy. That looks pretty good. When I was shading up here, I think it looks a bit darker in this area. I think it's when I went back and I made this area kind of lighter. So what I'm going to do is I'll take a big sample of this area, go more down here, and I'll just kind of go over it again. Make sure looks a bit more even. That looks better. And always try to zoom out. Try to zoom out as much as possible, because when you zoom out, that's when you're really going to see stuff. See, that looks way better. See, the forehead looks more even. The cheek looks pretty good, but it looks kind of rough around here. I think when I was retouching it, maybe I just wasn't attentive enough with my brush, so I'm just going to go back in there. And that's pretty important. Just keep going back in, zoom out, you'll see how it looks overall, and then just go back in. You know, just keep going for it. There is a bit of a shadow there, and I don't want to get rid of it, so I'm just going to just do a little bit. I don't need to completely smooth it out, because I don't need to use the color to add dimension, which is something I used to do, and I don't think the results are as good as when you're just using dodge and burn. Don't try to use the color to shape the face. You're just simply evening out the colors. Using the light and shadows is what's really supposed to give the face dimension, and that's what you do in dodge and burn. So don't try to shape the face really by this technique. You're just trying to make each area just more even as far as color. And that's something that I've started doing more recently, not trying to use the frequency separation to shape their face. It's just not it's not what the technique is really for. So then once I feel good about her face, which looks really good to me, I'll move on to other areas of the body. So you're gonna touch up the face, you really should touch up everything. So I'll make sure, pay attention to the colors. If something's dark, it's gonna stay dark, like I said. If it's light, it's gonna stay light. But you just want to even out the color a bit. This is a pretty hot spot on her back here as far as the lighting. So I'm just gonna go back over it with a little bit of color. You can see how the sun kind of blew out the color there. So I'm just kind of lightly going back over it. Bring some color back. It's here. The skin is exposed. Let's go over this too. And you see there's some shadow there. I just kind of want to preserve that, so you don't want to remove dimension from your photo. So I'm just going to kind of leave that there. That is looking pretty good, so I can go over here and I can show you the before and after. So this is already in a group, so you can see that difference there. It's a pretty big difference, right? And we really didn't do that much. Yeah, looks good. Her skin looks really good there. So now that we have that done, her skin looks even. That's the look of the purpose of high frequency separation. Like I said, there's other videos online that go a little bit more in depth, but this is how you do it. So the next step from here, I'll make sure I click the background layer, and then I'll go back up to dodge and burn. Like this is another action I have, and I'll dodge and burn. So I'll just press play, and from here, it shows up here, but I have to drag it up above skin retouch or it won't show. So from here, I have a dodge, and dodge just means that it's lighter. So, you know, if I invert this again, you'll see that it makes the photo lighter. But I don't want it light in the whole picture. I just want it light in certain areas. So what I'll do is I'll invert it, and I'll take a brush, and I'll brush in the areas that I want lighter. And then the burn layer, you just think of something that's burned. If something gets burned, it gets darker. So this is the areas, if you brush in with here, this is the areas that get darker. So I'll brush in the darks. So the way I learned how to dodge and burn is I actually studied the way women do their makeup. So women will apply their makeup so that it looks lighter in certain areas of their faces and it looks darker in certain areas of their faces. And the reason why they do that is because it adds dimension to their face. It gives it more pop. It makes it more 3D. It accentuates certain, areas of your face that, when they're accentuated, it's more associated with what makes them look more beautiful. And that's kind of what the point of makeup is. It kind of just like really accentuates the features that you already have. So that's what I'm doing with dodging and burning. And it's kind of what you do with the high frequency separation too. As the same way as I think foundation will even out your skin, the dodge and burn adds those highlights and that contouring to your face. So I always start with dodge. And again, when I'm editing a face, I start top down. So I actually have a diagram in front of me of, where to highlight on a face and where to contour it. So I'm looking at the diagram right now. You guys can't see it, but maybe I'll be able to throw this up somehow. Or you can just Google, how to contour, or Google and go to images and look for highlighting and contouring, and you'll see diagrams, which is what you're really looking for, a diagram of highlighting and contouring for makeup, and you'll find a lot of stuff. So I'm just going to start here. So my diagram in front of my face here. So the first thing to highlight is kind of the forehead here. I'm going to adjust my flow rate to 4. Actually, I'm going to move it to, I think 4 or 5 is good. I'm just going to leave it at 4 to find out what's works for me. And I'm just going to do a little bit. I'm just going light here. I'm finding like this is not highlighting, so I have to make sure the black and the white is adjusted, which I find that it's not. So first of all, that should be white. And I'm going to hit X to switch their positions, and then with that white layer it should show up now, and yes it does. This happens to me from time to time. I don't know why, but when you're using the brush tool and you're using like a light adjustment, like you're lighting with curves or dodge and burn, you got to make sure this is white and black or it's not going to work. So on the white you're going to see that it will apply the layer. So now it's lightening the skin in this particular area, and I kind of do an upside down triangle sort of, and I go really light with this. What ends up always happening is I go in too hard with this and I just kind of adjust the opacity, but that's okay. But I want to see that I am applying it the way that I intended. I just want to make sure I see it. So I'm going really easy here, going slow. So you highlight the forehead. If you watch makeup tutorials, you'll see that, you know, they do you do the highlights like this too. So highlight the forehead. You want to highlight under the bridges of the eyebrow. So this area here, you're gonna highlight that. And then even though this is in the shadow, I still do it because attention to detail. Next place you want to highlight is the nose. So some people just kind of do the whole nose. It's just a different look. I just don't feel like that looks too natural. It's kind of how I did it before, but I just kind of do the bridge of the nose now. So the bridge here, and then just the tip of the nose. Looks a bit more natural to me. Now, right now, this is going to look exaggerated, but it's okay. We're going to mess with the opacity later. I just kind of like to make sure it's very visible where I'm applying the highlights. And then I'm going to apply it to the cheek. The cheek's next. So when I apply it to the cheek, I try to make sure it's on top of the natural bridge of the cheek. So you kind of see how it's triangular here, and there's kind of naturally darker here because this is the dimension of her face. This is the top of her cheek. This is the underside of her cheek. And I'm just trying to apply a little bit of light above the cheek, so it kind of accentuates her cheekbone. And like I said, all of this is going to look kind of exaggerated, but we're going to go back over and adjust this afterwards. But it's kind of like a check mark. I don't want to go back under her eye again because I feel like under your eyes there's kind of like a natural concaveness to it, so it just kind of goes in. So there should be a little bit of darkness, even though you don't want bags under the eye. There should be a little bit of darkness here, so I kind of leave that alone. So that's good. I'll add another little bit here on the other side of the cheek. Even if it's in the dark, there's still light in there. The reason why you see it is that there's light getting in there, so you still have to apply that highlight there. Alright, so that looks good to me. I'll do a little bit more on the nose here. A little more even. There we go. That looks better. And next, like I said, I go top down. So the next thing is going to be around the lip area. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't do, but this is going to make a big difference. But it is highly tedious. So this is the Cupid's, I think they call it Cupid's bow, this little area, this little right here. So you just want to highlight the areas that I kind of already highlighted. So I'm just going to go in here, just make it a little bit lighter. I'll go in again here. I'm just going where it's already light, and I'm adding a little bit more light. Adding just a little bit more dimension. You kind of see how it pops more. And a lot of people, when they're doing their makeup, they do that as well as the top of the lip. It makes their lip pop out a bit more too. So you're kind of paying attention more to their lips. And you'll see now that kind of pops more. Now it looks all the areas that I highlighted are very exaggerated from out front, but we can see that we applied them, which is what I want. This looks a little uneven here. I shouldn't be doing it from this far, but I kind of done this a bunch of times already, so I kind of know. Alright, so let me go back in. So it's kind of dark right here, so I'll just line that up just a bit. And that looks good. Okay, so next thing you'll highlight is around the corners, like the corner from the corner of the nose to the corner of your mouth. That should be a little bit lighter, but I go with a really big brush because it shouldn't be a defined line. It should just generally be lighter. So I'll go in with a big brush and I'll kind of go there, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side, even though it's dark, but I'll just go a little bit lighter here. And that is good enough. That is good enough. And the last place, or this isn't the last place, I'll go back, but the chin. So everybody's chin usually has a little dimension to it, so we'll just add a little bit of highlight here to add a little bit more dimension, kind of give it more pop. And yeah, so the last thing, so like I said, the heart, to me, the heart and soul of any portrait is the eyes. So the eyes really need to pop. So I whiten, or I dodge the eyes. I dodge the eyes, and I'm actually going to go over this again with a different tones curve to really brighten the eyes. The eyes are incredibly important. When you look at someone, you're looking at them in their eyes, and in the portrait, and in real life, or you know, when you talk to someone, you're looking at their eyes. So making sure their eyes pop is really important. Now, like I said, highlights look exaggerated. We're not going to mess with that right now. We're just going to make sure that the highlights are there and they're even. So that's that. Forehead, bridge of the nose, tip of the nose, cheeks, both sides. Cupid's bow is highlighted. That lip area. The sides of the mouth, very large brush, go over it lightly, and then the chin, and then this one's kind of tough, but I like to go over this with a big brush and apply it lightly, just right there, bam, and that's enough. Just add just a little bit more, and that's it. And that's going to add the first layer of dimension. Now we have to do the burn, which is the dark portions of the photo. So gonna go in. So the first thing that we darken is the corners of the head. So right in here in your temple, the temple area, I just kind of make like a triangular motion. Just kind of sweep in there. Just kind of sweeping motion. Kind of close it off with a triangle, if that makes sense. And then you don't see the other side of her head, so that's not really necessary. The next area is I'll go over the eyebrows. And like I said, this is a lot of different things, but each little bit of effort you're putting in is going to make the photo that much better. It's going to make the photo that much better. It's going to pop that much more. People are going to pay that much more attention to your photos. The next thing is going to be the size of the nose. That gives the nose a little bit more dimension, so I'll just go a little bit bigger. A sweeping motion. And all of this is going to look very exaggerated when it's like, it doesn't really look that exaggerated from up close, but when you zoom out, it all becomes very exaggerated. But we're going to use the opacity sliders to kind of, you know, control that afterwards. The next thing is the undersides of the cheek. So the way we highlighted above the cheek, we're going to dodge under the cheek. So I like to take a big brush and I'd use very light application, because contouring, I find, is a very subtle thing. It shouldn't be drastic. You know, a little bit of contour goes a long way. So I don't like to do too much. And then even though this is on the other side, there is still dimension to her cheek here, so I just apply a little bit right there. Bam, and that's it. And then we go back into the Cupid's bow here, that Cupid's bow area, and we apply a little bit more. To be honest, when I usually do this, I do this all at the same time. In this Cupid's bow area, I'll apply the light and the dark at the same time, because it kind of bothers me just seeing one done and not the other, but I'm trying to be a little bit more uniform for this tutorial. So that looks really good to me. Just gonna apply a little bit more because I know when I go back and I cut down on the opacity, this is gonna disappear a bit. So a little bit darker, I'll just go a little bit darker under here. So the same way we applied it, highlight here, even though this is a little dark, we're gonna apply some dodging here, darken that up just a bit, and try to find the other areas where there might be some shadows. So like under here, add it a little bit more here. You know, her neck is in the shadow, so it makes sense that we add some shadow there. And wherever you add shadow to the face, you also have to apply it to the rest of the body. So I'm looking for other places in the body where this would be applied. So here, where it's dark, gonna apply some here. And that is going to be enough, I think. So that is a dodge and burn. It looks really exaggerated, but it's before, after, before, and after. Now this looks much better than here, probably, right? But we're gonna go back here. We're gonna start messing with the opacity slider. So what I do is I turn one of these off. So I'll turn the dodge off, or the burn off. So all I see is the highlights. And then I will adjust the opacity until I'm satisfied with this. I'll bring it all the way down to 0. And I'll start to slide it slowly up until I feel like the highlights look good. So right about here actually looks really good at 49%. This just looks like too much, so I'll go back to 49. That looks good to me. You know, a lot of this is feel. So I'll go back to the burn. The burn actually doesn't even look that bad, but I'm just going to go all the way down to 0. Just going to go up slowly, add more opacity in bit by bit, and sometimes I'll jump back and forth just to kind of see some around 39%. This actually already looks pretty good. It's 49. I'm at 67 right now. I feel like right about here, around 70. For me, all right, so for here, just for me, it's around 68 looks good. So I'll go back out and I'll look at her face, and that looks really good to me. Like, her face has a lot of dimension. If I'm not sure, I can just toggle the visibility of that layer, so I'll just take it off and add it, and yeah, that looks good. I feel like applying it made it look better. Her skin looks even here with the high frequency separation, and then once I add the dodge and burn, it just adds more dimension. Just her cheek pops, her cheekbones pop more, her lips pop more, her chin pops more. You know, the dodge and burn and the skin retouching just allows you to accentuate the beautiful features that your model or your subject already has. All your job is as a photographer to really bring that out. So I feel like that we accomplished that here. So this looks really good to me. So now this is done. You know, like I said, we focus really pretty much on their face and their skin tones and making sure that's good. Now that I feel like the skin tones are good, I feel like the shading of the skin is good. I feel like her the dodge and burning is good. This looks good. So what I'll do from here is I'm going to create a new layer that includes all of these previous layers. So I'll go on a Mac, it's Shift Option Command E, and that creates a new layer that is made up of all of these previous layers put together. So now that I have that, I turn these off, and you'll kind of see the overall before and after. So this is where we started when we started the photo, and this is the after, before, after. You see, now we didn't do that much, but it makes a big difference. as far as the retouching. This looks really good. So this is where I go in and I start to start the Liquify tool. And when I liquify, I usually do the same thing. So first thing I'll start in on the face. I like it when the eyes are a bit exaggerated, so this has to be very subtle. This is very easy to go crazy with, but I'll just make the eyes just a little bit bigger. So it's like 2 taps. So this is 1, and that's 2. Barely notice it, but like I said, every little detail adds up. I'll just zoom in a bit more here. 1, 2, and that's it. I like to arch the eyebrows a little bit more. So I'll take the push tool and I'll push that up just a little bit. Just gives the eyebrow a little bit more arch. Women like a lot of arch in their eyebrows. I like seeing the arch in their eyebrows. So I try to accentuate that. And it's just little subtle cues here. Okay, that looks really good to me. The lips I make a little bit bigger. And this is a very delicate art, and this took me a long time to master. So subtlety is your friend. So single clicks. You don't want anything super exaggerated, so I just use the Liquify tool there to make it bigger, and then you just use the push tool, and I just do little small adjustments. You do not want anything exaggerated. I am just trying to enhance what is already there. So I'll do the same thing for the top lip here. Just little bits, just little small adjustments. I don't want anything crazy. I don't want anyone to not look like themselves, and that's something I did a lot when I was first learning these techniques. I didn't know what I was doing, so a person would end up looking like a whole different human, and that wasn't my intention. But if you're new to something, you're not going to be perfect at it, and that is okay. But that looks really good to me. So I can hit P to see the before and after, and just a little difference makes a big difference. And this is nothing I couldn't, or a model couldn't have achieved from just doing their lipstick a bit differently. So I'm just small, minor adjustments here. Okay, that looks good. So her hair. So the next thing I'll do is I'll mess with the hair a little bit. So my philosophy is when I'm doing hair, big hair is good, long hair is good. And I pay attention to gravity. So gravity would tell me that her hair on the top would be flat. So I usually bring down any hair on the top down a bit. Then I will make any other hair just a bit bigger. So I'll push this out. I just want that hair to look luxurious. That luxurious hair. She already has great hair. And I'm just giving it a little bit more shape. Sometimes I'll just do it like a little indentations here and there. And I feel like it just gives it more volume. Make sure you're not adjusting her face or her head shape anyway. Sometimes the neck, I'll just try to make it a little bit more straight. It's really hard to have perfect posture when you have a photographer telling you to do this, that, and the third. So, I try to help models out when I am editing. And it's really easy to go overboard, so every now and then just kind of take a break and look at what you've done so far. This looks good. This already looks pretty good to me, so yeah, the hair looks good to me. So then I'll move down. So curvature is good. I think women do a lot as far as posing and angles to make sure the curvature is good, but nothing really beats Photoshop and Liquify. So I'll do a little bit just to kind of exaggerate the curvature, and it's just a little bit. Like I said, just a little bit goes a long way. Just a little adjustment. Just little adjustments here and there. Just a little. I think I may push that out. Just a little bit of adjustments. I pay attention to where little curves are already, and I try to keep it the same way. Trying to make sure the back looks straight. Perfect posture. Perfect posture looks good in photos, so I try to achieve that in this Liquify tool. And I think that this looks really good already. You can always toggle P to see, you know, before and after. If you feel like you achieved what you wanted to. We just small adjustments to the face, small adjustments to the eyes, small adjustments to the lips, the hair, posture. You want to make sure the posture is good, and make sure the dress is flattering them in the way that they wanted. Actually, I don't like how that. I don't want to push that in, exaggerate it too much. So this looks good to me. So I'm gonna go hit OK. Go ahead and hit OK here. So this looks good here. Let me see here. Oh, so the thing that I forgot was the eyes. So the way I make eyes pop is I'll go and I'll add a new adjustment layer, and I'll go to curves and I'll hit eyes here. And then what I'll do is I'll zoom into the face. Now the hard thing is here is when I took this photo, we didn't get enough light into her eyes, so I'm afraid some of the color data is not really there, but we're gonna try it anyway. So I'll take a curves layer and I'll do the sample curve here. So I'll take the hand and I'll go over to her eye and I'll click and drag up. And like I said, the color isn't really there, but it is there a little bit, so we're gonna work with it. So we'll bring that up so the curve naturally increases the curvature where it needs to. So this is where it is. What we're gonna do is invert this layer. We're gonna take a brush and I'm gonna zoom in a bit more, and then we're gonna brush in where we want the light to be, the eye to be lighter. So you see this white portion here, that's where the light is kind of entering her eye naturally. So when light comes in, it will come out on the opposite side. So if light came in through here, her eye would be lighter here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in that lighter look around her eye here. And it could be a bit too light, but we can always go back and darken it with the opacity afterwards. But I'll just lighten up the eyes around here, and I'll do the same thing here. So the light enters here, and just lighten it up here. You don't really see much on this side, but like I said, details matter, so you have to go in. It does lighten it up a bit, but it does lighten it up just a bit, and that looks good to me. So before, after, that looks decent from up close, but up close doesn't matter. You have to zoom out and see how that looks. That looks actually pretty damn good already from out farther, so I don't think I really want to do much more with that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's get this before, after. You know, let me just go in and see if add a little bit more light here. Yeah, that looks good. And I think that's pretty much it. So since I like the way the eyes look, I'm just going to combine these two layers. So I'm just going to leave these visible. I'm going to remove the visibility of the old layer, and I'm going to merge these two layers. So I'll merge visible. So this is done as far as retouching. She looks good. Her posture looks good. The skin looks nice and even. It has great dimension to it with the dodging and burning that we did. Yeah, her hair looks good. She looks fly as fuck. This is the this is the look that I want. It's like, does the model look fly as fuck? So I like the result here. Like I said, I didn't edit this photo before. I just used it for the this tutorial, and then we can look and go back to see before and after, and that looks really good. Now, the thing that I don't like about this picture is that the background is way lighter than the model. So what happens is that people tend to pay attention to the brightest part of the photo. So what we can do here is what we're going to do is create another layer, new adjustment layer, curves, and I'm going to hit OK. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample the background. So I'll hit here, and I'm just going to drag this down to a darkness that I like. So right about here looks good to me. This looks good. I would like this background as it is. So what I'll do is, I don't want her to look like that, so I'm going to invert the mask, and I'm going to use a brush to paint in the areas where I want that darker look. So the floor is still at 4%, so I'm going to bring that up to about 50. That should be good enough, and I'll start to paint in the areas I want to be darker. So around here, I'll try to pay attention not to darken the model. I don't think she's looking for a tan. I'm going to hit X and kind of undo the painting I did on the hands by accident here. So alright, so I'll hit X again to go back to the applying brush. So there we go. And I'll try to go in between here. This looks a bit more natural. Looks a bit less Photoshop. It's not really getting that much darker in here, but I guess that's how it would look. So not much I can do about that. So let me see. So I might need to adjust this a bit more. I think I just painted her hand again. And that actually has a lot of dimension to it, and I like that. Yeah, but this overall I think looks pretty good, man. This looks pretty good. So this is before. This is the before with the bright background. This is after, and you can see she just kind of stands out more. She is the lighter thing in the photo, or at least she's a similar tone to the rest of the photo. You know, so your attention is more on her than anything else. And I like the bokeh that shows up in the background here. It looks good, and it makes the photo look more 3D. I keep painting her hands. Undo that again. And that is a finished product, people. That is a finished product. So here, go back to here. Well, I unpainted that, so I'm going to take a step back. Trying to darken this area, but it doesn't look like it can get darker. And that is it, people. This is the finished product, and this took us probably a good amount of time, but yeah, I really like the end result of this photo. You know, she looks fly as fuck. And I'm gonna turn off the background layer. I'm gonna merge this layer because I like the way this looks. So I'm gonna create this into one image, and so overall, this is the final product. This is when we started off. Like I said, it's good. I like the pose. I like the look in her face. I like her eyes. I like the mystery, kind of like, you know, she has this look to her, like she's wondering something about you. I'm wondering about her. And, you know, we went in, we evened the skin. We used dodge and burn to make the skin pop, you know, to accentuate the natural beauty Aldana already has. and just make minor little adjustments here and there that creates a much more dramatic final photo, like this one. I'll probably post this one soon. But yeah, to me, this is a beautiful photo. Aldana looks fantastic. Her skin looks amazing. Her hair looks amazing. She pops out from the background. The attention is on her. She looks great. And I'm happy with this photo. And a ton of photographers. All these techniques were from other photographers that I've learned from. Ben Sasso taught me a lot about lighting. Irene Rudnick taught me a lot about skin retouching. I learned about a lot of the frequency separation stuff from Florin. I learned the dodging and burning originally from a photographer that I'm friends with on Instagram, Jason. He pointed me to another photographer, Third Eye Vision, who showed people how to dodge and burn using curves. And before I was trying to dodge and burn using just the dodge and burn tool. It really wasn't working. But using the dodge and burn through the curves tone was just game changing for me. And I really got to thank Jason for pointing me in the right direction there. I'm sorry, not Jason, James. My God. James pointed me in the right direction there towards Third Eye Vision and his technique, and that really changed the game for me. But yeah, I really love this final photo. I'll probably post this soon on Instagram. And, if this was helpful to you, hit a like, leave a comment, or subscribe, I guess, if I'll throw this up on YouTube. And just let me know, if you like this, if you like this, if you thought this was good, if you feel like there's something I left out, or if there's something more you wanted me to show you, please just let me know in the comments. And yeah, I like this photo a lot, man. It has a lot of dimension to it. It's moody. Can't wait to throw this up. But yeah, thank you, people. I hopefully will do some more of these and share it. Later.